Hey everybody, I'm glad you're here. Welcome back to the Shaman Storyteller, story number 6. So we left you in story number 5 with the meeting of Moskva and Angel, and laying down the law with Moskva that, how his men and people were going to behave in the bar that we had built. It kind of set some tone and some peace for me, feeling like I had situation a little bit under control. I didn't realize how wrong I could have been, but we we went on. We opened the bar. We had Jack Palance busted a bottle of whiskey over the front door of the bar, and we had a nice crowd in there, and had all the executives from Pepsi and RJR and AT&T in there dancing, cowboy dancing, and we just had a lot of good stuff going on. I had managed to put together a really great cowboy band. That is the house band that played every night, and we had just a packed house. People lined up to get in the place. It was a bit like Disneyland for them to be able to go in and see what a country western town looked like and felt like, and to hear the music and the drinking and dancing and fun. It was the hottest place in Kiev for sure. We got her open and got her running. And we'd been going along at a pretty good pace. Things looked like they were mellowing out between Angel and Moskva, and it seemed like Moskva's boys were in there once in a while, but pretty much behaving. And then we had decided to have a kind of an official grand opening, and so we put out notices. We had everybody in there. The bar was packed, and I was sitting next to Angel at the bar, and we were just chatting, and I heard a whistle, and I looked up, and coming down through the doors were, I don't know, there were probably 10, 12, maybe 15 guys, all dressed in long black jackets, real ominous looking. And Angel let out a whistle, and about 25 guys came out of the crowd from all over, and they basically just walked up to these guys and then just started pushing them and walked them back up outside. Well, when they got outside, it got a little rough. The guys pulled out some baseball bats and bricks and some things, and it was a war in the streets. I guess somebody had called the police because they were coming, so it seemed like the whole thing was kind of pre-planned. And Angel ended up getting his shoulder dislocated, and he got cut with a knife across his face. It's not a deep cut, but pretty good. And I guess it was quite a battle out in the streets. One of my friends was just walking up to the bar and saw it all going on, and said it was just like a gang fight out in the street. And they came back in. One of Angel's guys came back in and told me, get everybody out, close the bar, lock it up. And so we did. We kind of closed the bar down. We sent everybody home, and we locked her up. And I was sitting in there, and I heard a knock on the door, and in came one of Angel's guys. And I asked him, how's he doing? He said, he's at the hospital. He's going to be okay. But he just wants you to know one thing. Don't worry about any of this. It's all, they're taking care of it. It'll be taken care of. And I was just like, wow, this is really getting heavy. And I asked the guy if he had any idea who it was, and he says, well, we have an inkling, but we're not sure. There's going to be a little roundup, and we'll figure this thing out. So closed the bar. I kept it closed for a couple days just to be safe, and I just didn't want to get into it. And it was real strange because in the streets of Kiev, normally there were, at nighttime there were, hundreds of thousands of people around the streets and stuff, and the whole town just seemed empty. It seemed like nobody was in town. Something was going on. It was just really, really an intense time. And I went out to one of my buddy had a casino, and I went out to his casino, and I was hanging out there, and he came up and sat down and said, oh my God, I can't believe what's going on. And I was like, well, I know, there's a lot happening. And he said, well, your bar's only the start of it. This has really ignited a war between a couple of the big groups, and they're real suspicious of who did this and what it's all about. I mean, these guys have never operated like this. There's never been anything like this ever happen in Kiev and amongst the groups and stuff. And there's the guys that they caught said that it was they were hired by somebody. They didn't know who it was. They lived out in Siberia. They had been flown in. They had been asked to come in and do this. They'd been told that they would be told that Angel and his gang, his group, were protecting the bar, but it was all bullshit, and they should go ahead and rough some people up. And I'm just glad that didn't happen, because we had a lot of executives and embassy people and people in there that would have been a real story. I'm sure you would have read about it in the news had it come down with Angel and them not stopping what these guys were up to. So, you know, they said they couldn't prove that it was Moscow. They'd never been able to get anybody to admit that it was him that had done it. But Angel told me later when he came back, and he had his arm in a sling, and he was all right though. He had a attitude like he was still the big dog on the porch, and whoever did this was going to have to pay a price for it. So, you know, I felt bad for him, but I also knew that he knew what he was doing, and he was in his world, and his world was, you know, to figure this out and to make sure it never happened again, you know. So they ended up putting together a meeting with Moscow and Angel, and they had it in the bar. I walked into the middle of it, and I knew it was going on, and I thought I should probably be there. I probably shouldn't have been, but I walked in, and there were probably 25, 30 guys in there, and there wasn't a guy in the bar that wasn't holding some kind of weapon and looking real intense. And conversation going on the table with one of Moscow's head guys, and Angel was pretty intense and heavy, and you know, but what came out of it was that, you know, they said they didn't have anything to do with it, they were stupid, they wouldn't have done that, and on and on. So it was about maybe a week later, a really big news headline hit. Some guy had set off a bomb, and he had blown up, killed 2 cops and blown the legs off of a policeman who was still alive. And when they caught the guy, he told them that Moscow had paid him to do that. And so they put Moscow in jail. He went into jail. And I just had a feeling that it had something to do with the whole war that was going on at the time, you know. And they put Moscow in jail, and he kind of set up his little headquarters, from what I understood, in jail, where he was still kind of running things, but he was definitely had been crippled in terms of his ability to go out there and do anything, cause problems and issues. I know that probably didn't settle very well, and probably had a lot to do with what happened next, because, you know, I got the bar open, it was running smooth, and everything seemed to be going good. I'd been about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks into it, and I decided, you know, Kathy and the kids hadn't seen the bar, and so it was time. So I flew them in, and, you know, it was fun. Kathy was teaching line dancing, and Brianna was waiting tables, and she was about 10, and she was just smiling and having a good time with everybody, and Ben was hanging behind the bar with the bartenders, and, you know, no laws and rules in Russia about kids in bars, but, you know, they were there, and they were really enjoying the place, and it was hopping and a lot of fun, you know. And I went into work one day, and I was had a couple of guys come up to the front desk and asked for me, and they came in the back, and I recognized them from being in the bar the night before. I'd seen them and sitting at the bar, and I thought they were talking to some Angel's guys, but I wasn't sure. Just something about them, I recognized them. And so they said Angel wanted to talk to me, and I said, okay. So I grabbed my briefcase. It was just going out to pay some rent. So I had a bunch of money, I think about $8,000 in my briefcase. It was going to go in cash. I was going to go pay some rents on a bunch of apartments I had. And we got in their car, and we started driving to Angel's office, and they drove by it, and I said, what's going on? Is Angel not here? And he said, no, he's out of his dacha. And I knew where his dacha was, and we were heading in the right direction. Dacha is the place that they have for their little farms and their getaways in the summer. We started heading there, and all of a sudden, you know, the car stopped, and they looked back, and the guy got out to take a pee, and I kind of turned forward, and all of a sudden my door opened, and he had me by the shirt collar, dragging me out, and he was pounding on me, and the other guy came out of the car, and they were both hitting on me and kicking me, and they were dragging me into the woods. I was in a bit of a panic, as you can imagine. I knew this whole war thing had turned into something so much bigger than I should ever have been in the middle of. But they dragged me out into the woods, and they beat me pretty good. Another guy showed up, and the third guy who showed up was a little bit smaller, and he seemed to be more of just a conversation, telling them what was going on in town. And, you know, they told me, you know, you're dead. You're a dead man. If you don't give us $25,000, we're kidnapping you. And, you know, you're dead if you don't come up with it. Give me a phone number. Who's going to pay the money, you know? Well, the first thing I did was call my partner, Sergey, because I thought maybe he would know what was going on, and he might be able to back him off or do something. And I had them call him, and they came back and said they couldn't get a hold of him, and so I went ahead and had them call Angel's translator, and they called her and came back and said, it's just all bullshit, and we need the money now. And they started pounding on me, and they grabbed my briefcase, and they kind of dumped it out, and the money fell out. And the guy was like looking at it, and he grabbed it, and he goes, okay, you only owe me so much more. And as he did it, his watch fell off, and I don't know. He picked it up and said it was broke, and he told me, now you owe us, $25,000 again, or you're not getting out of here. And they just, for about 4 or 5 hours, they just beat on me and hit me. They wouldn't hit me in the face. They were hitting me in the, my body, and slugging me and kicking me. And, I don't know where it came from. I'm going to tell you, survival's a funny thing, but I just had a feeling, and they were kicking me pretty hard, that they were going to hurt me pretty bad. And so I faked a seizure. I went like I was switching and jerking all over, and I reached out and grabbed a stick and stuck it in my mouth, and I bit down on it, and I was just laying there twitching. And they kind of backed off. I think I scared them, and they were like, oh my God, what's going on? And the smaller guy came over and just started kind of holding my head, and he, like as if he knew something to do for someone having a seizure. He was kind of holding the stick in my mouth, and I was just wailing and laying there, and it backed them off. They stopped hitting on me and stopped beating on me too much, But just before that happened, I'd given them a couple more numbers, I think Yuri and maybe somebody else. And so as it turned out, the one guy went into town, and Angel got a hold of him and told him, he wanted to make sure I was okay. He wanted to come and see I was all right before they paid the money. They paid the money, but they wanted to make sure I was all right. And so they got me up, kind of dusted me off, tried to make it look like I wasn't too beat up and stuff. And they set me against a tree, and I was sitting there as Angel walked in, and he had his right-hand guy with him. That the only time I ever saw that guy was when there was something going on intense, and he was there for a reason. He was a real, I guess the guy was like a kickboxing fighting champion of Chechnya, and he was a little bit of the muscle man with the group, and he was with them, just the two of them. They walked in, and the three guys were there, and they were like, there were two guys, because the other guy had went to town. And all of a sudden, Angel said, come on, like he was going to take the big guy out to show him where to get him the money. And he hollered something in Chechen. So the Russians didn't understand what he said. And his guy grabbed the guy next to me in a bear hug and held him and pulled the rope out of his hand and started tying him up. And just then Angel came walking back in with the other guy. And, he just looked at me, sat the two of them down, had him tie the hands of the big guy and his bodyguard, and then they sat him down, and he said, get him out of here. So his bodyguard picked me up and carried me out. I couldn't walk very well. My legs were pretty sore, and I was having a hard time breathing. And they took me out. He took me out, and just as he was putting me in the car, I heard some gunshots go off. And, Angel came up and threw the gun in the trunk, a shotgun in the trunk, and got in the car next to me and just looked at me. He said, oh, man, I'm sorry, but you got to tell me what happened. How'd this happen? Where'd it come from? And I just told him the whole story, and what had gone down and how they'd showed up at the office, and they seemed like they knew him. They knew what was going on, and they just got me out there, and, and the rest is what he knows. And so he said, well, we put some bodyguards on your place. So anyway, he took and drove me back to the apartment, and he carried me into the apartment, knocked on the door, and I told him, I don't want you carrying me. And I stand up, and I stood up, and Kathy opened the door, and I just looked at her and said, get the kids in bed. And she put the kids to bed. She knew something was wrong, and she put the kids to bed because, I didn't show up after the office. I wasn't there that night to open the bar, and they had locked it up. They didn't know what to do. Everybody was worried. Everybody was around, kind of wondering what had happened to me. And so she put the kids to bed, and I told her, go draw a bath. And I got in the bath, and I just started crying. And told her the whole story of what had happened. And I just said, man, this thing's just gone so south. I don't even want to be here. I just want out. So we went to bed that night and got up the next morning, and my secretary came over, and I told her what had happened. And she said, yeah, Angel had talked to her and said, we got this taken care of. We figured out most of it. And, We can't guarantee the safety of his partner or anyone else involved in this, because this is not right. It's not supposed to happen. This is not the way it goes. And we're going to make it right. And so Angel came and picked me up, took me over to his office, and his older brother was there. And I could tell he felt bad, man. He could hardly look at me in the eye, and he just said he was sorry quite a few times. And he said they got it covered. We're taking care of it. And I looked over on the table, and there's a big pile of money sitting on the table. And him and Angel and him took off, and they said, hang out here for a little bit. We got you the airline tickets for you and your wife and kids to get home. You can go out tomorrow. We got you out of here first class, get you out as quick as possible. But because you need to go home. I told them I need to go home. I need to heal. I need to fix myself, make sure nothing's wrong, go to a doctor and do some stuff. So they got me tickets to get out. They left, and about an hour later they came back and they said, okay, tonight the same security guards that guard the president of Ukraine will be standing at your front door. They're going to escort you wherever you need to go. They're going to be your bodyguards and your protectors. And I was just like, wow, okay. They just need to get me to the airport, and I'll figure it out from there. So the next day, they showed up. They got me in the car, and they drove me out to the airport. And Kathy and I and the kids got on the plane. And I left Ukraine. I left everything. There was no going back. I knew that. One of the bigger guys that was in on the kidnapping was still out there. I knew I couldn't be in my bar, I couldn't be in my house, I couldn't be in anything. I would have had to change my entire life. And it just, none of it felt worth it. So I just walked away from it all. I got on a plane and I flew back to California. And I remember I woke up the first day after I got in California, I walked out on my front porch, and I was still feeling a lot of the effects. I was going to the doctor that day, and I just looked around and I thought, what am I going to do now? And I saw a rake laying there, and there were some leaves. And I just started raking. They say when you have something really heavy go on in your life, grab a shaver or a brush or a comb and do something you're used to doing, and I think that's what that was. And I just raked the whole lawn. I went down to the doctor. Everything was okay. A lot of internal bruising and stuff, but nothing broke, and I was all right. I mean, physically, they said I was all right, but emotionally and mentally, I sure wasn't, Because, what comes next and how things roll is more of the story, and I'm really glad you're here for the story, This is the story of my life. I think you're figuring this out by now, because what I want to do is to just show you how you go from where you are to where you're going, through the adversity, through all the things that happen in your life that you might not understand, through all the hardships, through all the divorces, through all the separations and friends you lose, and all the, jobs you go through and all of that, and how you come out the other end of it all whole, because that's really what's important. Standing up for yourself, loving yourself, trusting yourself, believing in yourself enough to keep yourself healthy and whole. And I'm as fit and healthy as I've ever been in my life. I'm 63 years old, and I just love life. The future for me is so bright. I'm telling you, I keep saying it. I got to go get some new sunglasses because it's bright out there, and I love what's coming. And I can't wait to tell you more about what's coming, and I'm looking forward to that. So I hope you'll come back and join us for those stories as well. Namaste. God bless you. Thank you. And you have a good day. Have a good week. You have a good year, and you have a good life. Bye now.